Good morning. It is 9:08 a.m. on Sunday, September 10th, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. I hope that I will be able to post this video today because my internet is acting up, acting a little weird where some sites load just fine and others don't. So I don't know what that's all about. But hopefully it won't be a problem. Anyway, though, it is Sunday, and that means that I'm continuing my rewatch of Avatar: The Last Airbender with Season 3, Episode 15, The Boiling Rock, Part 2. So, of course, this is the episode that culminates the two-parter that we started last week with our intrepid gang of prison breakers having to escape this infamous prison with new dangers thrown at them. And although I think it would have been reasonable to expect that maybe the rest of the team played some role, nope, not necessary. Instead, they get assistance from an unlikely source. And I'm being cagey about it for no reason because we're rewatching. Obviously, the rescue of Hakoda and Sookie is a big deal for the good guys, and Sokka in particular. And then, of course, for Zuko having proven himself. And all of that is important. But the thing that really stayed with me for this episode is actually when Mai and Ty Lee finally turn on Azula. Because, first of all, the escape from the prison and the rescue and all that, I mean, that kind of felt like, well, yeah, right? I mean, that's gonna happen. But Ty Lee and Mai have, ever since their introduction, been interesting characters in the sense that they didn't really seem like bad people, certainly not the way Azula was. And so the idea that they are following her so loyally was always a little bit of a weird feeling, because on the one hand, they're definitely helping her, and she's definitely a bad person. So that kind of makes them they're doing bad things, but they don't seem that bad otherwise. And they're, I think, more along the lines of their families are important in the Fire Nation, and they've kind of just bought into this whole thing of like, no, we're protecting our nation. That's what we're doing. And loyalty is important, and they've been friends since they were little kids and everything. So that seems to be it. But apparently what it just takes is the realization for them that the loyalty is not really mutual. They've been very giving of themselves to Azula's cause all along. And when they see how quickly she will completely turn on them, I think that makes them understand that their loyalty was really misplaced all along. And so that's a big deal. But so before we jump right to that, which happens at the end of the episode pretty much, we rejoin our narrative where we left it, which is basically that Hakoda is part of the new team of prisoners being brought into the Boiling Rock. And so Sokka is watching as this new group gets the same lecture from the Warden. And Hakoda is first not willing to look the Warden in the eye when commanded to, and then he trips him. And on the one hand, I mean, I think this is obviously intended to be a way for us to see, oh, he's not broken. And he's still tough, and he's standing up to the Warden and everything. Although I can't help but feel like, if I was there able to have a one-on-one with Hakoda there, I would just want to say, what are you doing? I mean, I guess you want to keep your dignity and all, and I understand that, but you're kind of provoking him as opposed to just standing up for yourself here, and it's likely to only make your treatment worse. And right now you have no way to know that Well, I suppose that's true. Right now, he's thinking there's no way out forthcoming, and he has to make his plans on the assumption that he is going to try to maintain his sanity and his dignity while he's in prison. And it's really only our knowledge that there's a potential escape attempt upcoming that makes us want to have him not make things worse. And yet, he actually, despite humiliating the Warden, seems to get off pretty light, relatively speaking. Doesn't get put in the cooler or anything, although I suppose the Warden might be temporarily concerned about putting people in the cooler. Also, it's not clear that it would have the same effect on someone from the Water Tribe as it does from someone from the Fire Nation. Anyway, so basically we get a repeat of the scene from last week where Sokka goes to his father's cell and is immediately threatened on the basis of looking like he's a guard who's about to do something untoward. And instead, we get the joyful reunion. Sokka is really glad to see his father is okay, but also confesses his fear that, like, we had a plan to escape, but it got ruined, so now I don't know what to do. And his father is just like, well, all right, we'll figure something out. And it's great. It's nice to see that relationship. But in the meantime, we know that more stuff is going wrong because Chit Sang, the prisoner who ruined the last week's escape attempt, and we're still not 100% sure how we feel about him. He doesn't seem like the brightest bulb, for sure, but he's got a canniness to him, a cleverness, and we don't really know where his loyalties lie. So when he's being interrogated, he's initially unwilling to say who helped him. The warden is certainly smart enough to realize that, yeah, I don't think you came up with this plan. So he's initially reluctant, and then apparently the torture involves, oh yeah, I'm going to have 2 guards stand there and hold you upside down for an indefinite period. That seems like a weird torture to me. Like, I'm sure it's unpleasant to be held upside down. I'm not saying that that's unpleasant, but having the guards literally have to lift this huge guy in a sturdy wooden chair and hold him upside down for however long it takes, that seems impractical. But in any event, when eventually Chit Sang reveals one of the guards is an imposter, we're made to think, oh no, he's going to give away everything. Sokka's still managing to pass himself off as a guard is really the one wild card that the gang has at the moment. But as it turns out, hey, not such a bad guy after all. He chooses to identify the guard that bullied him last time instead, causing relief for our guys for sure, and also cementing him as more likely to be a character that is on our side than not, which is good. But in the meantime, we have also, Sokka is trying to spread the new plan to everybody. When he goes to Zuko, he almost runs out of time to tell him the plan, which basically amounts to, we're going to make a distraction and be in the yard in an hour. But Zuko is being taken somewhere, and we don't know where. Turns out, May is here. She's come. And she heard about Zuko's imprisonment from her uncle. And at least at first, we wonder if she's there alone. Or did she come with Ty Lee and Azula, which, as we realize later, she did. But we only see her at the moment. And it's a really neat scene because they obviously cared about each other. And it was hard for Zuko to leave. And there was an extent to which he wanted to be careful to not implicate her in his treachery. But that said, breaking up with her by letter, certainly, like, whatever his reasons are, that's not satisfying at all to May. And so she confronts him on it and on his betrayal to begin with. And it's, at least in this conversation, it seems like he's really not making any headway whatsoever. That he says, I don't see it as betraying my nation. I see it as helping my nation. And because he's essentially saying the leadership, my father is crazy and he's bad for the world. And, you know, he doesn't quite say that, but that's the implication, right? And so let's see. So that's all we get for that moment. But we have Sokka is, you know, when he tries to go get Sookie, that's when, of course, he's brought in for the lineup, which turns out okay because of Chit Sang identifying the wrong guard. But then when they interrogate that guard, that's where we reveal, oh, Azula and Ty Lee are here. And Azula is able to listen to this guard for 1 minute, you know, one sentence, and just say, no, wasn't him. And we're reminded of what she had said in a previous episode, that she's a people person. She can read people, which works perfectly in this moment, but also has the nice tie-in to what happens towards the end of the episode, where she immediately is just able to say, no, that's definitely not him. So in the meantime, it's time to implement the plan. Sokka talks a guard into letting all the prisoners out of their cells during what's supposed to be a lockdown. And it's, I think, basically the only reason that it works at all, because it seems like an unlikely request, is the fact that this warden is kind of nuts. Like, he is... The idea that he's irrational, and yes, I know the order doesn't make sense, but you don't want to disobey him when he's acting like this, do you? That is a persuasive argument to this guard. So, you know, that's kind of there's a bit of storytelling convenience, but it also works based on, what we've seen of this warden, who's got an overinflated sense of his own self-importance. So all of the guards get released into the yard, and it's time to start a riot. And Hakoda starts and he kind of shoves this one big guy, and we get a nice moment of humor where the guy's like, hey, that hurt my feelings. I've been working on anger management. That's why I'm not immediately going to fight you as a result. And then in the meantime, here's where we get Chit Sang coming in, helping out after all, in the sense that apparently all it takes for him to start a riot is to just pick up a guy, hold him over his head, and we expect maybe he's going to throw him at someone or something, but he doesn't. He just kind of goes, hey, riot! And everybody riots. So, like, that's fun. And it cements Chit Sang as being on our side. Even though, you know, we'll see. He, you know, everything with him is a little fun later, too. Just, you know, it's jumping ahead to the very end of the episode, but when we... Sokka is revealing who he's brought with them, and Sookie and Hakoda come out, and everyone knows who they are, and then this guy's like, hi, I'm new. But in any case, we start the riot. And this is where we get a lot of action. We have Sookie being super badass in terms of running across this crowd by jumping on people's heads, and then climbing up the wall, and managing to snag the warden. And it's one thing that I think we could have wondered, like, is she still up to snuff having been imprisoned for so long? But we also got the earlier shot of her practicing her moves in her cell, which I think nicely kind of counterbalances that question. And so in the meantime, they take the warden hostage as planned. And they're trying to... you know, implement this plan, but in the meantime, Zuko is still with May, and when the riot goes off, he knows he has to go, and he doesn't want to have to hurt May, and so he's in this position of, like, kind of, you know, from a relationship perspective, being crappy to her, again, in the sense of escaping her and then closing her in the cell so that she can't follow. And so we could understand her being even more angry with him when he moves to escape. So he joins up with them. They manage to get onto the gondola. They break the lever so it can't be fought. It seems like they're on their way out with the escape The plan is working, except that, of course, we realize Azula and Ty Lee are here, and they are capable of catching up with this gondola by going up the wires. And then we get this awesome fight of, on the roof of this gondola above a boiling lake. We've got multiple fights going on. And in the meantime, we've got, the Warden down in the car with Chit Sang, and everything's just crazy. We have Sokka and Zuko with an awesome tag teaming of fighting Azula, where Zuko is not attacking, but only just blocking all of her fire blasts while Sokka tries to go in with his sword. And they're kind of, matched that way. And then in the meantime, we have Sookie being one of the only people who's ever managed to go up against Ty Lee and not let her land any blows. So that's fun. So this is just a great action sequence here, no question about it. But eventually the Warden breaks free, and he yells at his guys to cut the wires. And so what we know is that if that happens, that kills everybody and drops them all into a boiling lake. So it's interesting characterization for him that he is so caught up in this this record of his that he would literally rather die than let them actually successfully escape. So they're going to do it. They're going to follow orders. And it's interesting, too, that this is all happening with Azula and Ty Lee still up there, too. So you could imagine them kind of saying, what? Wait a minute. But they are able to jump away onto the other gondola that's going down the other direction. And so it would seem like, from Azula's perspective, all right, yeah, okay, they're all going to die. Good. We win. And so she is willing to let her brother and all of these other people that she doesn't even care about at all die by falling into a boiling lake. But this is where all of a sudden May comes back into the picture, and however mad she is at him, she doesn't, at Zuko, she doesn't want him to die by drowning. And so she stops the guards from cutting the wires, and she's fighting them off and saving the jerk who dumped her, according to her, which is, it is great to see and really heartwarming, and it rescues the situation that seemed hopeless for our heroes and allows them to escape, and they find the airship that Azula came in and steal that, which is satisfying. And then we just have them, happy ending for all of them. But here's where we go down and we have this moment that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this kind of crucial moment of the episode, as far as being memorable to me. Ty Lee and Azula, once they get back down, they challenge May, like, what did you do? You betrayed me and allowed them to escape. And this is where May calls back on Azula's whole people person thing, is like, you miscalculated. You're not as good at reading people as you think. Because your miscalculation was that I love him more than I fear you. And this is where we get a substantial reveal that a big part of their loyalty really always was better to have her on our side than to be on her enemy. And that's probably true, so it's kind of like, if you keep her happy, you get what you want and you don't have to fight with her. But finally, May decides, no, I loved him more than I feared you. And then her response, your miscalculation, you should have feared me more. So all of her feelings about this betrayal are expressed with rage, and she seems to be about to kill May. And Ty Lee intervenes. She blocks her and leaves her limp and paralyzed, temporarily, on the ground. She finally making this decision too. Like, I think of the three of them, Ty Lee was the one who had always seemed a little bit more ill-suited to this line of work. I mean, she's certainly capable as a fighter, but from a personality perspective, didn't seem very invested in the cause. But that said, I think she probably always saw it as Ty Lee and May were sort of a unit, and they were both with Azula. But if Azula is about to kill May, can't let that stand, can't let that happen. So even though now that puts May and Ty Lee both in a position of being imprisoned for betraying Azula, it also leaves Azula alone. Which, I don't know. We'll see. She's accomplished an awful lot having the two of them at her side. And we'll see how that goes with her. And I mean, I know how it goes having watched the rest, but Azula is one of the most memorable villain characters in all of fiction for me, largely because of, like, she's been sort of uber competent up through now. We got little peeks of her vulnerabilities in the beach episode, but now with her allies having betrayed her and her turning on them, what next? How's she going to handle that? And we'll see. So the next episode, the next episode is called The Southern Raiders, and that's season 3, episode 16. So I'll be back to talk about that next week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.